Lieutenant Hannah Kim sat alone in the corner of the mess hall, watching the small creature eat from her plate. The being was no bigger than a house cat, with black fur that seemed to move like water and bright golden eyes that never stopped watching everything around them. She had named it Nuri, and for 3 months now it had been her only real friend on the research station. "Look at her talking to that thing again," Corporal Minho Park whispered to the others at his table. His voice carried across the quiet room, and Hannah could hear every word. "She treats it like it's human or something." Sergeant Una Lee laughed as she took a bite of her food. "Yesterday I saw her reading to it from her tablet. Reading stories like it was a little kid. It's just an animal, but she acts like it's family." Private Jinwoo Choi shook his head. "My grandmother back home feeds stray cats, but even she doesn't talk to them like they understand her. Hannah's lost it completely since her brother died. Command should have sent her home months ago." Hannah's hand stopped moving toward her fork. She looked down at Nuri, who had stopped eating and was now staring at the other soldiers with those bright eyes. The creature made a soft sound, almost like it was trying to comfort her. She reached out and gently touched its head, feeling the strange warmth that always came from its fur. "They don't understand us, do they, Nuri?" she said quietly. "They think you're just some pet I picked up. But you're more than that. You're my blood now, my family." The laughter from the other table got louder. Minho stood up and walked over to where Hannah sat. He was a big man with broad shoulders and arms covered in tattoos from his time fighting on the outer colonies. Most people were afraid of him, but Hannah just looked up calmly as he approached. "Kim, you know regulations say no alien specimens on the station," he said, crossing his arms. "That thing could be carrying diseases or parasites. It could be dangerous to the whole crew." "Nuri isn't dangerous," Hannah replied, not moving from her seat. "And it's not a specimen. It's a living being that needed help when I found it." "You found it 3 months ago on that dead rock we surveyed," Una said, walking over to join them. "It was probably eating the corpses of whatever used to live there. For all we know, it killed them." Hannah felt anger rise in her chest, but she kept her voice steady. "The planet was already dead when we got there. The cities were empty for years before we arrived. Nuri was just surviving, trying to find food and shelter like any creature would." Jinwoo joined the group, completing the circle around Hannah's table. He was younger than the others, barely 20, but he had the same hard look in his eyes that came from too many battles. "Surviving by eating dead things. That's not exactly the kind of friend I'd want to have." "You eat dead things too, Hannah?" "Pointed out. That meat on your plate was once alive. The difference is that Nuri never had a choice about what was available to eat." The 3 soldiers exchanged glances. It was the same conversation they had been having for weeks, and none of them seemed willing to understand her point of view. To them, Nuri was just an animal, a pet that she had become too attached to because she was still grieving for her brother, they who had died in the battle for Titan Station. "The difference," Minho said slowly, "is that we know where our food comes from. We know it's safe. That thing could turn on you at any moment. Wild animals can't be trusted." "Nuri isn't wild," Hannah said, reaching down to scratch behind the creature's ears. It made a soft purring sound and leaned into her touch. "It understands more than you think. It knows when I'm sad or happy. It brings me things it thinks I might. Like, it tries to take care of me just like I take care of it." "Animals can be trained to do tricks," Una said with a shrug. "That doesn't make them family. You're projecting human emotions onto something that doesn't have them." Hannah looked down at Nuri, who was now looking back up at her with those golden eyes. There was something in that gaze that the others couldn't see, something that went deeper than simple animal intelligence. When she looked at Nuri, she sometimes felt like she was looking into the eyes of an old friend, someone who had seen more of the universe than any of them could imagine. "Maybe you're right," she said finally, knowing it would end the argument faster than trying to explain something they would never understand. "Maybe I am just seeing things that aren't there." The 3 soldiers seemed satisfied with that response and walked back to their table, resuming their conversation about the upcoming mission. Hannah finished her meal in silence, sharing small pieces with Nuri and trying to ignore the occasional glances and whispers from the other table. Later that evening, Captain Somin Jang called the squad together in the briefing room. She was a small woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had been leading military units for over 20 years, and her reputation for getting her people home alive was legendary throughout the fleet. "We've received new orders from command," she began, activating the holographic display in the center of the room. A planet appeared in the air before them, blue and green and beautiful. "This is Kepler 442b. 3 weeks ago, we lost contact with an advanced alien civilization that had been sending us peaceful communications for over a year." The image zoomed in, showing vast cities with spires that reached toward the sky and technology that looked far beyond anything humans had developed. But something was wrong with the picture. The cities looked empty and there were no signs of movement anywhere. "The last message we received was a distress signal," Captain Jang continued. "Then nothing. No communications, no energy signatures, no signs of life. Command wants us to investigate." "Could be a trap," Minho said, leaning forward in his chair. "Maybe they're testing us, seeing how we react to a fake emergency." "That's possible," the captain agreed. "But our analysts don't think so?" The distress signal contained information about their technology and defensive systems that they had never shared before. If it was a test, they wouldn't have given us that kind of intelligence. "So what do you think happened to them?" Jinwoo asked. Captain Jang was quiet for a moment, studying the image of the empty planet. "We don't know. But whatever it was happened fast. One day they were there, the next day they weren't. We need to find out what could make an entire advanced civilization disappear overnight." Hannah felt Nuri shift in her lap where it had been sleeping during the briefing. She looked down and saw that the creature was awake now, staring at the holographic planet with an intensity she had never seen before. Its golden eyes were fixed on the image, and its body had gone completely still. "We leave at 0800 tomorrow," Captain Jang announced. "Full combat gear, standard reconnaissance protocols." "Any questions?" There were none, and the squad began to file out of the briefing room. Hannah lingered for a moment, still watching Nuri's reaction to the planet. The creature seemed almost afraid, which was strange because it had never shown fear of anything before. "Something wrong with your pet?" Yuna asked as she passed by. Hannah looked up to find that she was the last one in the room except for Captain Jang, who was shutting down the holographic display. "I don't know," she said honestly. "It's acting strange." Captain Jang glanced at the creature, then at Hannah. "Regulations say no unauthorized alien life forms on military missions," she said quietly. "I know, Captain. But Nuri isn't dangerous, and it doesn't take up much space or resources. It could even be useful for detecting things our equipment might miss." The captain studied them both for a long moment. "That creature has been your shadow?" "For 3 months. The other soldiers think you're too attached to it, but I've seen how it affects you. You're calmer with it around, more focused. Your performance scores have actually improved since you found it." "So I can bring it on the mission?" "I didn't say that," Captain Jang replied. "But I also didn't see anything in this room except my SQUAD receiving their orders. What you do with your personal time and belongings is your own business, as long as it doesn't interfere with the mission." Hannah smiled for the first time in days. "Thank you, Captain." "Don't thank me yet," Captain Jang said as she headed for the door. "We still don't know what we're going to find down there. And if that thing becomes a liability, you'll have to make a choice between it and your squad." As the captain left, Hannah looked down at Nuri again. The creature was still staring at the space where the planet had been displayed, and she could swear she saw something like worry in its golden eyes. "What is it, Nuri?" she whispered. "What do you know about that place?" The creature looked up at her and made a soft sound, almost like it was trying to warn her about something. But of course that was impossible. It was just an animal, no matter what she sometimes felt when she looked into its eyes, wasn't it? The shuttle dropped through the atmosphere of Kepler 442b like a falling stone. Hannah sat in the back corner, her equipment pack resting on her lap with Nuri hidden inside. The creature had been quiet all morning, barely eating and staying close to her side. Through the small opening in her pack, she could see its golden eyes watching everything with that same worried look from the night before. "Landing zone coming up," announced Pilot Lee Sun-ho from the cockpit. "Looks clear from up here, but I'm not seeing any power signatures from the city. Place looks completely dead." Captain Jang checked her weapon one more time and looked at her squad. "Remember, we go in quiet and careful, full scans of everything. If there are survivors down there, we help them. If there are hostiles, we gather intel and get out. Nobody plays hero today." "What about evacuation procedures?" Minho asked, adjusting the heavy plasma rifle on his back. "If we need to leave fast, how long until pickup?" "Sun-ho stays with the shuttle. If things go bad, he can have us off the ground in under 2 minutes. But I want at least 6 hours of reconnaissance before we even think about leaving." Command needs answers about what happened here. The shuttle touched down in what had once been a busy plaza in the center of the alien city. Through the small windows, Hannah could see tall buildings made of some kind of crystal that caught the light and threw rainbows across the empty streets. Everything looked perfect and clean, like the inhabitants had just stepped out for a moment and would be back any second. "Atmosphere is breathable," Jinwoo reported, checking his scanner. "Oxygen levels are actually higher than Earth normal. Temperature is comfortable, no signs of radiation or toxins." "Then why isn't anything moving out there?" Yuna asked, peering through the window at the silent city. "Even if all the people are gone, there should be animals or insects or something. This place is too quiet." Captain Jang stood up and headed for the shuttle door. "Only one way to find out. Everyone stay close and keep your eyes open. If something feels wrong, speak up immediately." The door opened with a soft hiss, and the squad stepped out onto the alien world. The air smelled clean and fresh, with a hint of something like flowers. The crystal buildings around them rose hundreds of feet into the sky, their surfaces reflecting the light of the system's twin suns. But despite the beauty of the place, there was something deeply unsettling about the complete silence. "Scans show the main government building is about half a mile north," Captain Jang said, consulting her tablet. "That's where the last communication came from. We start there and work our way out." They began walking through the empty streets, their boots echoing off the crystal walls. Hannah felt Nuri shift restlessly in her pack, and she reached in to gently touch its fur. The creature was trembling, which she had never seen before. Whatever was wrong with this place, Nuri could sense it even better than their instruments could. "Look." At this, Minho called out, stopping beside what appeared to be a vehicle of some kind. It was sleek and beautiful, shaped like a teardrop and hovering a few inches off the ground. "Engines still running, but nobody's inside. Like they just got out and walked away." "Same thing over here," Yuna reported from across the street. Food vendors with fresh meals still sitting out, no signs of struggle or panic. "It's like everyone just vanished at the same moment." They continued toward the government building, passing more evidence of interrupted daily life. Shops with their doors standing open, children's toys scattered in parks, personal belongings dropped on sidewalks. But no bodies, no blood, no signs of violence or disaster. "Captain," Jinwoo said nervously, "my scanner is picking up some kind of movement in the buildings around us. Big heat signatures, but they're not moving like people. More like animals, but larger? How large?" "Captain," Jang asked, raising her weapon, "really large. Maybe 8 or 10 feet tall, and there are a lot of them. They seem to be staying in the shadows, but they're definitely tracking our movement." Hannah felt Nuri's trembling get worse. The creature made a soft whimpering sound that she had never heard before, and she could feel its fear through the pack. Something was very wrong here, and whatever it was, Nuri knew about it. "Should we go back to the shuttle?" Yuna asked, scanning the buildings around them with her rifle ready. "Not yet," Captain Jang decided. "We need more information." "But everyone stay alert. If those things wanted to attack us, they probably would have done it already. Maybe they're just curious." They reached the government building and found the main entrance standing wide open. Inside, the halls were filled with the same eerie silence as the streets. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows on the walls, and their footsteps echoed in the empty corridors. "Communication center should be on the top floor," Captain Jang said, checking her map. "Elevators are still working, which is good news." As they rode up in the crystal elevator, Hana noticed that Nuri had gone completely still. The creature wasn't trembling anymore, but its eyes were wide and alert, like it was listening for something the humans couldn't hear. The communication center was a massive room filled with advanced technology that hummed quietly in the dim light. Screens showed data streams and star charts, but no signs of the beings who had been operating them. Captain Jang began downloading information from the main computer while the others spread out to search for clues. "Captain, you need to see this," Minho called from across the room. He was standing in front of a large screen that showed security footage from around the city. "This is from 3 weeks ago, right before they went silent." The footage showed the same streets they had just walked through, but filled with tall, graceful beings going about their daily lives. They looked almost human, but with longer limbs and faces that seemed to glow with inner light. The city was alive and busy, exactly what they would have expected from an advanced civilization. "Fast forward to the day they disappeared, Captain," Jang ordered. Minho worked the controls and the footage jumped ahead. At first, everything looked normal. Then, suddenly, the aliens in the streets began looking up at the sky with expressions of terror. They started running, not in panic, but with purpose, like they knew exactly what was coming and where they needed to go. "What are they running from?" Yuna asked, but before anyone could answer, the screen went black. "That's it," Minho said. No. More footage after that moment. Whatever happened, it happened fast. A loud crash echoed through the building from somewhere below them. Then another and another, like something very large was moving through the lower floors and knocking things over as it went. "Those heat signatures Jinwoo detected," Captain Jang said quietly. "I don't think they're just curious anymore." The crashing sounds got closer, and now they could hear something else, a wet, sliding noise like something being dragged across the floor. Then came a sound that made all of them freeze in terror. It was a scream, but not from any creature they had ever heard. It was the sound of something in terrible pain and rage, something that had been hungry for a very long time. "Back to the elevator now," Captain Jang ordered, but as they turned around, the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a few seconds later, bathing everything in red light that made the crystal walls look like they were covered in blood. Through the floor they could feel heavy footsteps moving toward the elevator shaft. "Stairs," Yuna said, pointing to an exit sign. "We can't get trapped in that elevator." They ran for the stairwell just as something huge crashed into the elevator. Doors below them. The entire building shook, and pieces of crystal fell from the ceiling. Whatever was hunting them was strong enough to tear through the advanced materials of the alien building like they were made of paper. In her pack, Nuri suddenly became very active, making urgent chittering sounds that Hana had never heard before. The creature was trying to tell her something, but she couldn't understand what. "Hana, move!" Jinwoo shouted, grabbing her arm and pulling her toward the stairs. They ran down the stairwell as fast as they could, but the sounds of pursuit followed them. Heavy claws scraped against crystal walls, and that terrible wet sliding noise echoed in the enclosed space. Whatever was chasing them was getting closer. "How many floors?" Captain Jang asked as they rounded another corner. 15 more, Minho answered, breathing hard. "But I don't think we're going to make it. That thing is faster than us." As if summoned by his words, something burst through the wall above them in an explosion of crystal shards and dust. Hana caught a glimpse of something huge and dark with too many legs and eyes that glowed like coals. It moved like a spider, but it was the size of a truck, and when it opened its mouth, she could see rows of teeth designed for tearing meat from bone. Junwoo raised his rifle and fired, the plasma bolts lighting up the stairwell with blue fire. The creature screamed and fell back, but more crashing sounds from above told them it wasn't alone. "Run!" Captain Jang shouted, and they sprinted down the remaining stairs as fast as their legs could carry them. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit. grew louder and more urgent. Whatever these creatures were, they had been waiting for prey to come to them, and now that the hunt had begun, they weren't going to give up easily. As they burst out of the building and into the street, Hannah could see their shuttle in the distance. But between them and safety, more of the creatures were emerging from buildings and sewers, cutting off their escape route. They were surrounded, outnumbered, and a long way from home. And in her pack, Nuri had finally gone completely silent, as if the creature knew that their time for hiding was over. The creatures surrounded them in the crystal plaza, moving like giant spiders across the walls and ground. Their black bodies gleamed in the twin suns' light, and their glowing red eyes never blinked as they watched the trapped humans. There were at least 20 of them, each one the size of a small vehicle, with claws that could tear through metal and teeth that dripped with something that looked like acid. "Defensive circle," Captain Jang ordered, her voice steady despite the impossible situation. "Watch each other's backs and make every shot count." The squad formed up back to back, their weapons pointed outward at the circling monsters. But everyone could see the truth in each other's eyes. They had maybe 50 shots between all of them, and there were too many creatures to fight. "Captain, should I call for pickup?" Minho asked, his plasma rifle tracking one of the larger beasts as it tested their perimeter. "Negative. If we call Sunho down here, these things will just kill him too. We need to find another way out of this." One of the creatures took a step closer, and Jinwoo fired a warning shot. The plasma bolt hit the crystal ground and sent up a shower of sparks. The creature stopped but didn't back away. Instead, it made a sound like grinding metal and showed its teeth. "They're not afraid of our weapons," Yuna observed. "Look at how they move. They've seen energy weapons before." She was right. The creatures moved with the confidence of predators who knew exactly what their prey could do. They had fought beings with advanced technology before, and one dot in her pack, Hana felt Nuri stirring again. The creature had been silent during their escape from the building, but now it was moving around like it wanted to get out. She reached in to calm it, but instead of the usual warm comfort, she felt something different. Nuri's fur was standing on end, and its small body was tense with energy. "Easy, Nuri," she whispered. "I know you're scared, but you need to stay hidden." But as soon as she said the words, she realized they weren't true. Nuri wasn't scared anymore. The trembling and whimpering from earlier had been replaced by something else entirely. The creature felt focused, alert, and strangely calm. "We can't." "Stay here," Captain Jang said, as more creatures emerged from the buildings around them. "They're bringing in reinforcements. In 10 minutes, we'll have 50 of these things to deal with." "What about the old subway tunnels?" Jinwoo suggested, pointing to an entrance they had passed earlier. "Maybe we can lose them underground." "Those tunnels could be full of more creatures," Minho pointed out. "We could be walking into a trap." "We're already in a trap," Yuna said as one of the monsters crept closer. "At least underground we might have a chance." The largest creature, one with scars across its face and claws longer than human arms, seemed to grow tired of waiting. It let out a roar that shook the crystal buildings and charged straight at them. Captain Jang and Minho opened fire together, their plasma bolts hitting the creature center mass. The energy weapons burned through its black skin and sent it tumbling to the ground, but it wasn't dead. Already, it was getting back to its feet, and the wounds were closing before their eyes. "They heal fast," Captain Jang said grimly. "Really? Fast?" That seemed to be the signal the other creatures were waiting for. All at once, they began moving in from every direction, their claws scraping against crystal and their mouths open to show those terrible teeth. "This is it," Jinwoo said, raising his rifle. "It's been an honor serving with all of you." But before anyone could fire, Hana felt something incredible happen. A warmth spread through her chest, starting from where Nuri was hidden in her pack, and flowing out through her entire body. Suddenly, she could feel the creature's heartbeat as clearly as her own. She could sense its thoughts, its emotions, its memories, and what she found there was not the mind of a simple animal. Nuri's thoughts were ancient and deep, filled with knowledge of stars and worlds that humans had never seen. The creature had lived for thousands of years, watching and waiting and remembering things that happened before her species had even learned to make fire. And it knew these monsters, these devourers, better than any being in the galaxy. "Nuri," she whispered. And for the first time, she felt the creature respond not just with affection, but with words. Not spoken words, but thoughts as clear as speech. "I have been waiting," Nuri's voice said in her mind. "Waiting for one who could understand. One who could share the burden of what must be done." "What are you?" Hannah asked, still speaking out loud while her squad fought for their lives around her. "I am Guardian. My people fought these creatures long ago, before your species learned to walk upright. We nearly destroyed them, but some survived. Some always survive. And now they have found your world." The connection between them grew stronger, and Hannah gasped as memories that weren't hers flooded her mind. She saw great battles fought among the stars, guardian warriors the size of buildings tearing through armies of devourers. She saw worlds consumed and worlds saved, and she understood that this moment had been building for a very long time. "Kim, what's wrong with you?" Yuna shouted as she fired at a creature that had gotten too close. "Help us fight these things." But Hannah was barely aware of the battle anymore. The bond with Nuri was growing deeper every second, and she could feel the creature changing inside her pack. Its small body was getting larger, its soft fur hardening into something like armor, its gentle claws extending into weapons. "I need to come out," Nuri said in her mind. "But if I do, there is no going back. The others will see what I really am, and they will never look at you the same way again." "I don't care," Hannah replied, watching as Jinwoo went down under the claws of one of the devourers. His scream cut through the air, and she saw blood spreading across the crystal ground. "They're my squad. They're going to die if we don't help them. Then let us help them together." Hannah unzipped her pack and stepped back from the defensive circle. Her squad was too busy fighting to notice as something began to emerge from her equipment. At first, it looked like the same small creature they had been mocking for months. But as it stepped onto the crystal ground, Nuri began to change. Its body stretched and grew, muscles appearing where none had been before. Its soft black fur became scales that gleamed like metal, and its golden eyes blazed with inner fire. Claws that had been used for play extended into razor-sharp weapons, and wings unfurled from its back like dark lightning dot in seconds. The creature that had once fit in Hannah's lap was now the size of a large predator, standing between the humans and the devourers with a presence that made the air itself feel different. "What the hell is that?" Minho shouted, spinning around to see what was happening behind him. The devourers had stopped their attack, their glowing red eyes fixed on the transformed guardian. For the first time since the battle began, they looked uncertain. Some of them took a step backward, and the largest one made a sound that might have been fear. "That's Nuri," Hannah said, feeling the full weight of the bond between them, "and it's here to help us." Through their connection, she could feel the guardian's power flowing through her own body. Her senses became sharper, her reflexes faster, her understanding of the battle clearer than it had ever been. She was still human, but she was also something more now. Something that could stand against creatures that had destroyed entire civilizations. "Impossible," Captain Jang whispered, staring at the transformed guardian. "What is that thing?" "It's my blood," Hannah said, finally understanding what those words had always meant. "And it's been waiting for this moment its entire life." The largest devourer let out another roar and charged at the guardian, its claws extended and its mouth open wide. But Nuri moved faster than anything that size should have been able to move. Flowing like liquid lightning across the crystal ground, the two creatures collided in the center of the plaza with a sound like thunder. The devourer was strong and vicious, but the guardian was something else entirely. It was purpose-given form, millions of years of evolution focused on a single task, destroying the things that consumed worlds. "They're fighting," Yuna said in amazement. "Your pet is actually fighting those monsters." "It's not my pet," Hannah corrected, feeling Nuri's pain as the devourer's claws found their mark. It's my partner, and we're all going to fight them together. Through the bond, she could sense the Guardian's strategy, its knowledge of the Devourer's weaknesses, its understanding of how to turn their own strength against them. And for the first time since they had landed on this cursed world, she felt hope. The real battle was just beginning, but they were no longer helpless prey. They had something the Devourers had never faced before, a guardian who had found a human worthy of the ancient bond, and a human who was willing to share not just her life, but her very soul with a creature that most people would never understand. As Neri tore into another Devourer with claws that burned with inner fire, Hannah raised her rifle and joined the fight. The connection between them made her faster and stronger, but more importantly, it made her part of something larger than herself. The squad that had mocked her attachment to a simple animal now watched in awe as that same creature became their salvation. And in the depths of her enhanced awareness, Hannah realized that this was only the beginning of what they could accomplish together. The battle in the Crystal Plaza turned into something no human had ever witnessed before. Nuri moved through the Devourers like a force of nature, its claws cutting through their armored bodies and its teeth finding weak spots that their weapons had missed. But for every creature it destroyed, two more seemed to emerge from the buildings around them. Hannah felt every strike, every dodge, every moment of the Guardians' fight through their bond. Her own body moved in perfect sync with Nuri's, her rifle finding targets that she somehow knew were vulnerable before her eyes could even focus on them. The connection made her faster and stronger, but it also made her feel every wound the Guardian took as if it were her own. "Kim, how are you doing that?" Captain Jang shouted over the sounds of battle. She had watched Hannah shoot 3 Devourers in rapid succession, hitting weak points that should have been impossible to see from her position. "I can feel where they're going to move," Hannah called back, her voice strained from the effort of maintaining the bond. "Nuri shows me their patterns, their weaknesses. But there are too many of them." It was true. Despite the Guardian's incredible abilities, the Devourers kept coming. For every one they killed, more crawled out of sewers and buildings. The creatures seemed to communicate without sound, coordinating their attacks in ways that made them far more dangerous than simple predators. Jinwoo lay on the ground near the center of their formation, his leg badly injured from the first attack. Minho had dragged him to safety. But the young soldier was losing blood and needed medical attention that none of them could provide in the middle of a battle. "We need to get to the shuttle," Captain Jang decided. "Fighting position by fighting position. Nuri can clear us a path, but we have to move now before more of these things show up." Through the bond, Hannah felt the Guardian's agreement. Nuri was powerful, but it was also getting tired. The transformation had taken a lot of energy, and maintaining its enhanced form while fighting dozens of enemies was wearing it down quickly. "Nuri says it can give us an opening," Hannah reported. "But we'll only have a few minutes before they regroup." The Guardian let out a roar that shook the crystal buildings and launched itself at the largest group of Devourers blocking their path to the shuttle. Its attack was so fierce and sudden that the creatures scattered, some running back into the buildings while others tried to circle around and attack from behind. "Move! Move! Move!" Captain Jang ordered. The squad ran across the plaza toward their shuttle, with Minho carrying Jinwoo and Yuna providing covering fire. Hannah stayed close to Nuri, feeling the Guardian's exhaustion through their bond, but also its determination to protect the humans it had come to care about. They were halfway to the shuttle when a new sound filled the air. It was deeper than the Devourer's roars, a rumbling that seemed to come from underground. The crystal ground beneath their feet began to crack, and something huge was pushing up from below. "What is that?" Yuna asked, stopping to look back at the plaza. What emerged from the broken ground made all of them freeze in terror. It was a Devourer, but far larger than any they had seen before. This one was the size of a building, with claws that could tear through vehicles and a mouth full of teeth as long as human arms. Its eyes burned like stars, and when it looked at them, Hannah felt a cold intelligence that was far more frightening than simple animal hunger. "That's their leader," she said, the knowledge coming through her bond with Nuri. "The Alpha, It's been controlling all the others. The Guardian landed beside her, its breathing heavy and its scales showing damage from the earlier fights. Through their connection, she could feel its fear. Not fear for itself, but fear for her and the other humans. This creature was beyond anything Nuri could fight alone. "Can you handle that thing?" Captain Jang asked, her voice tight with worry. "Not by myself," Hannah answered honestly. "The bond makes us stronger, but that alpha has been alive for thousands of years. It's destroyed entire worlds." The massive devourer took a step toward them, and the ground shook under its weight. The smaller creatures that had been fighting then began gathering around their leader, forming a living wall between the humans and their shuttle. "So what do we do?" Minho asked, still supporting the wounded Jinwoo. "We can't fight that thing, and we can't run from it." Hannah looked at Nuri, feeling the Guardian's thoughts through their bond. There was a way to increase their power, but it would be dangerous for both of them. The connection they shared could be pushed deeper, allowing them to truly become one being instead of two separate minds working together. "There's something we can try," she said slowly. "But if it doesn't work, we might both die in the attempt." "And if we don't try?" Captain Jang asked. "Then we definitely all die," Hannah replied, watching as the Alpha Devourer opened its mouth and let out a roar that shattered crystal windows for blocks around them. Through the bond, she felt Nuri's agreement. The Guardian was willing to risk everything to protect the humans who had become its family. And looking at her squad, her friends, who had mocked her attachment to a simple animal, Hannah realized she was willing to risk everything too. "Do it," Captain Jang ordered. "Whatever you have to do, do it now." Hannah knelt down beside the Guardian and placed both hands on its scaled head. The bond between them flared brighter than it ever had before, and suddenly she couldn't tell where. Her thoughts ended and Nuri's began. Her human knowledge merged with the Guardian's ancient memories, her emotions mixed with its primal instincts, and her life force joined with its alien energy. The transformation was agonizing and beautiful. At the same time, she could feel her awareness expanding beyond her human limitations, while Nuri's power grew beyond anything it had ever achieved alone. Together they became something new, something that had never existed before in the history of either species. When the light faded, Hannah was still herself, but she was also something more. Her eyes now glowed with the same golden fire as Nuri's, her reflexes were enhanced beyond human limits, and she could feel the life force of every creature around her. Like a map written in light, the Guardian had grown as well, its form now crackling with energy that made the air around it shimmer. Its wounds had healed, and its presence felt so powerful that even the Alpha Devourer took a step backward. "Now that's more like it," Yuna said with grim satisfaction. "Show that thing what happens when it messes with humans." But even as Hannah felt the incredible power flowing through the bond, she also felt something else: the cost. The transformation was burning through both their life forces at an incredible rate. They would be stronger than they had ever been, but they wouldn't be able to maintain it for long. "We have maybe 10 minutes, she told her squad, her voice now carrying harmonics that sounded like Nuri's mental voice. "After that, we'll both collapse from exhaustion." "Then let's make those 10 minutes count," Captain Jang said, raising her rifle. "Take down that Alpha, and we'll handle the rest." The Alpha Devourer seemed to realize that the situation had changed. It let out another roar and charged toward them, its massive claws tearing up chunks of crystal ground with each step. The smaller Devourers followed their leader, creating a wave of teeth and claws that would have overwhelmed any normal military unit. But Hannah and Nuri were no longer normal. They moved as one being, faster than the eye could follow, striking with precision that came from millions of years of evolutionary memory. The Guardian's claws, now enhanced by human intelligence and strategy, found weak points in the Alpha's armor that even it didn't know existed. The battle was spectacular and terrible, two ancient enemies meeting in combat while the fate of not just the human squad, but potentially entire worlds, hung in the balance. And for the first time since the Devourers had begun their expansion across the galaxy, they faced an opponent that might actually be able to stop them. But as Hannah felt the power burning through her body like fire, she knew that victory would come at a price that none of them were prepared to pay. The enhanced bond between Hana and Nuri lasted exactly 8 minutes and 37 seconds. She knew this because she could feel every second ticking away like a countdown to their deaths. The power flowing through their connection was incredible, but it was also burning them up from the inside. Together, they had managed to wound the Alpha Devourer badly. Nuri's claws, guided by Hana's tactical thinking, had torn through the creature's thick armor and left deep gashes that leaked black blood onto the crystal ground. But the monster was far from defeated, and now it was angry. The Alpha's roar shattered more windows and brought down pieces of the surrounding buildings. The smaller devourers responded to their leader's call, pouring out of every street and building in numbers that made their earlier battle look like a small skirmish. "There must be hundreds of them," Minho said, his voice tight with fear as he watched the approaching wave of creatures. "How many of these things are on this planet?" "All of them," Hana answered, the knowledge coming through her fading bond with Nuri. "This is their breeding world. They've been here for decades, consuming everything and multiplying." Captain Jang fired her rifle at the nearest group of devourers. But even with the squad's combined firepower, they were barely slowing the creatures down. "Kim, can you and Nuri give us another power boost? We need something big if we're going to get out of this." Hana tried to reach deeper into the bond, but instead of more power, she felt Nuri's exhaustion mixing with her own. The Guardian was struggling to maintain even its basic transformed state, and she could taste blood in her mouth from the strain of their connection. "We can't," she admitted, watching as her golden-eyed glow began to fade. "We pushed too hard. If we try again, we'll both die." The Alpha Devourer seemed to sense their weakness. It advanced slowly, confidently, knowing that its prey was trapped and helpless. The smaller creatures formed a circle around the humans, cutting off any hope of escape. "Captain," Jinwoo called weakly from where Minho was supporting him. "My scanner is picking up energy signatures from the north. Big ones, moving fast toward our position. More devourers?" Yuna asked, her rifle trained on the approaching Alpha. "No," Jinwoo said, his voice filled with confusion. "These signatures are different, cleaner, they're not biological." Before anyone could ask what he meant, the sound of engines filled the air. 3 sleek aircraft appeared over the crystal buildings, their hulls gleaming with the same technology. The squad had seen in the alien city. They moved with impossible grace, weaving between the towers without slowing down. "The original inhabitants," Captain Jang breathed. "They're still alive." The aircraft opened fire on the devourers with weapons that made human plasma rifles look like toys. Beams of pure energy cut through the creatures like they were made of paper, and the Alpha Devourer let out a roar of pain and surprise as one of the beams caught it across the back, but the rescue came too late for Hana and Nuri, the Guardian. Collapsed beside her, its enhanced form flickering like a dying flame. Through their weakening bond, she could feel its life force fading, burned up by the power they had used to fight the Alpha. "Nuri, stay with me," she whispered, kneeling beside the Guardian and placing her hands on its scaled head. "We made it. Help is here." The Guardian's golden eyes looked up at her with an expression of infinite sadness. Through their connection, she felt its final message, gratitude for the bond they had shared, pride in what they had accomplished together, and love for the human who had treated it like family when everyone else saw only an animal. "No, Hana," said, feeling tears on her cheeks. "Don't leave me, please." But even as she spoke, she could feel her own strength failing. The bond had taken too much from both of them. Her vision was blurring, and her hands were shaking as she tried to maintain contact with the Guardian. "Kim!" Captain Jang shouted, but her voice seemed to come from very far away. The alien aircraft had driven off most of the devourers, including the wounded Alpha, but the victory felt hollow. Hana could barely stay conscious, and Nuri's breathing was becoming weaker by the second. One of the aircraft landed in the plaza near them, and tall, graceful beings emerged. They looked exactly like the ones from the security footage, with long limbs and faces that seemed to glow with inner light. Their leader approached the human squad cautiously, speaking in a language that sounded like music. We cannot understand you, Captain Jang said, lowering her weapon to show peaceful intent. But thank you for saving us. The alien leader looked at Hana and Nuri with obvious surprise. It spoke again, this time in halting but recognizable English. Guardian bond, it said. Impossible, guardians extinct. Bond sharing forbiddance. Not forbiddance, Hana whispered, using the last of her strength to speak. Necessary. They were going to kill us all. The alien knelt beside them, its glowing eyes examining both Hana and the dying guardian. Bond sharing kills both, it said sadly. Always kills both, is price of power. Then why did Nuri do it? Hana asked, feeling the guardian's heartbeat, growing weaker against her hands. Love, the alien replied simply. Guardian loved human, human loved guardian. Love makes sacrifice worthwhile. Through the fading bond, Hana felt Nuri's agreement. The guardian had known what would happen when they merged their life forces, but it had chosen to do it anyway to protect the humans it cared about. Just like she had chosen to accept the bond, knowing it might kill her. Is there anything you can do to help them? Captain Jang asked the alien leader. The being was quiet for a long moment, studying the pair with an expression of deep thought. Maybe, it said finally, our medical technology is advanced. We can try to separate bonds safely, save both lives. But risk is great. Do it, Hana said without hesitation. Save Nuri. It doesn't matter what happens to me. The guardian's eyes opened one more time, looking directly at her with fierce disagreement. Through their connection, she felt its refusal. If one of them was going to die, they would die together. If both of them were going to live, they would live together. That was what family meant, both or neither, she said, understanding. Together, or not at all. The alien leader made a sound that might have been approval. Guardian wisdom, it said. Human wisdom. We try to save both. More aliens emerged from the aircraft carrying medical equipment that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. They worked quickly and efficiently, surrounding Hana and Nuri with devices that hummed with energy and cast strange lights over their bodies. Will it work? Yuna asked, watching the alien medics with fascination and worry. Unknown, the leader replied honestly. Bond sharing has never been reversed. But guardian-human connection is new thing. Maybe new connection allows new possibility. As the alien technology worked on them, Hana felt the bond between her and Nuri beginning to change. Instead of the burning intensity that had nearly killed them both, the connection became gentler, more sustainable. The guardian's life force stabilized and her own strength began to return. I think it's working, she said, feeling hopeful. The first time since the battle began, but even as the immediate danger passed, she could sense that something fundamental had changed between them. The bond was still there, but different now. Permanent in a way it had never been before, but also safer. More balanced. They had survived the joining, but they would never be quite the same again. And looking at her squad, at the aliens who had saved them, and at the Guardian who had been willing to die for her, Hana realized that being the same was the last thing she wanted. They had become something new together, something that had never existed before. And if the galaxy was full of threats like the Devourers, maybe something new was exactly what the universe needed. 3 days later, Hana sat in the medical bay of the alien ship, watching Nuri sleep on the bed beside her. The Guardian had returned to something close to its original size, but it still looked different than before. Its fur had taken on a metallic sheen, and its eyes held a depth of intelligence that was impossible to ignore. The bond between them had stabilized into something remarkable. She could still feel Nuri's emotions and share its thoughts, but the connection no longer threatened to burn them alive. Instead, it felt like the most natural thing in the world, as if they had always been meant to be together. How are you feeling? Captain Jang asked, entering the medical bay with a cup of something that smelled like earth coffee but tasted like flowers. Different, Hana answered honestly. Stronger, but also more aware of how much I don't know about the universe. The captain sat down in the chair beside her bed. The aliens have been very helpful. They've shared a lot of information about the Devourers and the Guardians. Did you know that Nuri's species once had an entire civilization dedicated to fighting those creatures? I saw some of it through our bond, Hana said, reaching out to touch the sleeping guardian's fur. They were warriors, but also guardians in the truest sense. They'd protected other species from threats they couldn't handle alone. And now there's only one left? That we know of. But the aliens think there might be others scattered across the galaxy, hidden on different worlds, waiting for someone they can bond with. Captain Zhang was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Command is going to want a full report about what happened here. About Nuri, about the bond, about everything. What will you tell them? The truth, the captain said simply. That we discovered something that could change how humanity survives in this galaxy. That creature you called your blood saved all our lives, and it did it because you treated it with love and respect when everyone else saw it as just an animal. Hannah smiled, remembering the weeks of mockery and criticism she had endured. The others understand now, don't they? Minho spent an hour yesterday trying to convince one of the alien medical assistants to let him adopt it as a pet. Yuna keeps asking if there are any guardian eggs she could take care of. And Jinwoo wants to know if the bond would help him aim better. And you? What do you think about all this? Captain Zhang looked at Nuri, who had opened its golden eyes and was now watching their conversation with obvious intelligence. I think that love and loyalty are more powerful than any weapon we've ever developed. And I think that if there are more creatures like Nuri out there, humanity needs to find them. The door to the medical bay opened and the alien leader entered. It had introduced itself as Kalthara, which translated roughly to Starsinger in English. Its people had been fighting a losing war against the Devourers for centuries before going into hiding. Human Hana, Kalthara said in its musical voice. Guardian Nuri, you are healed enough for travel? We think so, Hana replied. Where are we going? Home. Your ship waits in orbit. Your people worry for your safety. Nuri stirred and climbed onto Hana's lap, settling there with the confidence of a creature that knew exactly where it belonged. Through their bond, she felt its contentment and its readiness to face whatever came next. What about the Devourers? She asked. Are they gone? From this world, yes. But they spread across many worlds. They multiply and consume and move on. Your people must be warned, and you'll help us fight them? Kalthara made a sound that might have been a sigh. We tried to fight alone for many centuries. We failed, but guardian-human bond is new possibility. Maybe together all species can succeed where each alone has failed. An hour later, they were aboard the shuttle heading back to their ship. Jinwoo's leg had been completely healed by alien medical technology, and he kept staring at Nuri with a mixture of awe and embarrassment. I'm sorry about what I said before, he told Hana as they entered orbit. About your pet, I mean. About you being too attached. Nuri was never my pet, Hana replied, scratching behind the guardian's ears. Pets are things you own. Nuri is family. Family, Minho repeated thoughtfully. Blood that you choose instead of blood that you're born with. Exactly, Yuna leaned forward in her seat. So what happens now? Do you think Command will let you keep Nuri? Will they understand what the bond means? Hana looked out the shuttle. Window at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there were more Devourers, consuming worlds and destroying civilizations. But somewhere out there were also more Guardians, waiting for someone to show them the love and trust they needed to fight back. I think they'll understand eventually, she said. And if they don't, we'll make them understand. The galaxy is too dangerous for any species to survive alone. Through the bond, she felt Nuri's agreement and something else. Hope. The Guardian had spent thousands of years alone, believing its people were extinct and its purpose lost. Now it knew that wasn't true. There were others like it, and there were humans willing to stand beside them. Besides, Hana added with a smile, they can't separate us now even if they wanted to. The bond is permanent. We're stuck with each other. Forever? Captain Zhang asked. Hana felt Nuri's warm purr vibrating through their connection, felt its love and loyalty and absolute commitment to their partnership. Forever, she confirmed as their ship jumped to hyperspace. Heading back toward Earth with news that would change humanity's understanding of the universe, Hannah closed her eyes and let herself drift into the shared consciousness she and Nuri had discovered. In that space between minds, between species, between the known and unknown, she could feel the future spreading out before them like a map written in starlight. There would be more battles to fight, more devourers to face, more worlds to protect. But they wouldn't face them alone. The bond between human and guardian was just the beginning of something larger, something that could unite species across the galaxy in common cause. The others had laughed when she called the creature her blood. They had mocked her attachment to what they saw as a simple animal. But now they understood what she had always known, that family isn't about species or biology or even understanding. It's about love, loyalty, and the willingness to sacrifice everything for someone who would do the same for you. As the stars streamed past their window, Hannah felt Nuri's contentment mixing with her own. They were going home, but more importantly, they were going together. And whatever waited for them in the darkness between worlds, they would face it as they had faced everything else. 6 months later, the first Guardian Academy opened. On Luna Base, where humans and recovered Guardians learned to form the bonds that would become humanity's greatest weapon against the threats spreading across the galaxy. And at the center of it all was a woman who had been mocked for loving a creature others couldn't understand, and the Guardian who had chosen her to be its family. They called her program Blood Bond Training, and by the end of the first year, applications came from every colony world in human space. Because word had spread about what love and trust could accomplish when shared between species, and everyone wanted to be part of something that powerful. The devourers were still out there, still consuming and destroying. But now they faced an enemy they had never encountered before, a coalition of species united not by fear or necessity, but by bonds as strong as family and twice as fierce, and at the heart of every bond was the same truth Hannah had discovered in a mess hall 6 months ago, that the strongest connections aren't built on understanding or similarity, but on the simple willingness to see another being as worthy of love. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, but it was also full of possibilities that nobody had imagined before. And with Nuri sleeping peacefully in her lap as their ship carried them toward their next mission, Hannah Kim knew that the best of those possibilities were just beginning.